What's up, everyone? If you don't know me, my name is Denzel Mensah. I'm an ENFJ, 9-wing-1 life personal development and relationship coach. And today we are going to be talking about letting people fail. Let's get it. Okay, so as an ENFJ, one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn in my own life is allowing other people to learn their own lessons. Although the irony in me being a life coach is that I help people to understand the lessons in their own life or to be able to avoid having to learn some lessons the hard way, sometimes that's the best way that people can learn lessons. We all heard that phrase where you can take a horse to the water, but you can't force the horse to drink the water, right? Well, as an ENFJ, especially, and this isn't just the ENFJs, of course, but anybody who pretty much likes to parent others or mentor others or advise others or pretty much just tell others what to do and what not to do, you kind of quickly learn that you can't really force people, and you probably shouldn't force people to do or not do certain things. I have a tendency, and always had a tendency, to pretty much look ahead, see the trajectory of how things might play out, and then if I see that happening, especially for loved ones in my life, then I try to steer them away from it. And a lot of times this could be direct, as in like telling them like, hey, I really don't think that's a really good idea to be able to do that. Or I might orchestrate certain things so that they can avoid going in a certain direction, even if they didn't know that I was one who orchestrated that thing to happen or from not happening. So you could kind of see it as like maybe tapping the steering wheel a little bit so that the ship can move course into a different direction without people really knowing that the ship has even moved course. And if they do notice it, then they have no idea there was a whole iceberg down that road. But oftentimes people pretty much feel like that's kind of putting some sort of stake in their autonomy. And even if it comes at the cost of them, hurting themselves in some way, they want to be able to have that so they can learn from it and they can know that, hey, I made those decisions on my own and I'll be okay. And that's something that I'm sure that parents have a hard time with at times when they are trying to teach their children not to do certain foolish things that they haven't learned yet. But as parents quickly learn, a lot of kids just have to learn things on their own. They have to learn like, okay, oh, this is why mom said don't touch the iron several times. I thought she was just trying to keep me from having fun. And now this bruise on my finger, and actually all three of them, is going to be here for the next 3 weeks or so. And I will always remember it. And I'm going to stay away from that iron. But if mama just kept on telling me, don't touch the iron, don't touch the iron, don't touch the iron, and I just never did, then eventually would probably come a point where maybe I would even start to question if what mom is telling me is actually true, which there are a lot of cases that people do warn of things that are not really dangerous in the way that they say that it is. So there's some understanding on that end too. But we're not going to get into all of that in this video. But there are definitely also times where people are warning about things that are actually dangerous for a person. However, the person in their stubbornness still wants to experience on their own and needs to know for themselves. So what do you do when you have such people? When you feel like, oh, but I just don't want to see my friend suffer. When I just don't want to see my child do this or, whatever, and then have to learn the hard way. Well, number one, let go, but not completely. Still obviously love the child, still obviously have love for your friend, but don't be more invested than they are, because that's where you start to mess yourself up. You do have to detach yourself to an extent. You have to allow yourself to still care for them so that if they do fall, if they do have to go and learn the lesson on their own, they'll learn it, or they'll at least experience what it is that you were about to warn them about, or maybe have already warned them about. And then they might come back to you, and don't hit them with the "I told you so," because honestly, nobody likes hearing that. You probably wouldn't even like hearing that. Instead, just be that compassionate ear for them. Be there for them, support them, and help them to be able to see, like, okay, what can we do better moving forward? What can we glean from this mistake so that we can practice this more in the future so that it's no longer a problem? I always liked the anime Dragon Ball Z, and early on in the anime, Piccolo was training Kid Gohan, and I remember that very briefly he kind of had Gohan out in the woods, and I don't know even how long, it's very foggy in my mind, but he had Gohan out in the woods, getting his own food, doing his own thing, and Gohan thought that he was completely alone. He had no idea that Piccolo was actually watching the whole time from a distance. And Piccolo allowed Gohan to get himself hurt a little bit, but he knew that Gohan wasn't in, like, really any kind of actual danger, and that he would be able to learn from the things that would actually hurt him, even though that Gohan felt like he was in actual danger. But those situations toughened Gohan and allowed him to be able to understand, like, wait, I am tougher and I'm stronger than I thought. So a lot of times, allowing people space to be able to make the mistakes and grow on their own helps them to be able to have the self-confidence that they need to be able to charge forward. Now they're not codependent on you anymore. Now they can actually make decisions more on their own. They're knowing more of their limits. They're growing. And these are things that are actually very good for us as human beings. And then, of course, like Piccolo was doing, you watch from a distance, because Piccolo still cared. He didn't throw Gohan out there just because he didn't care about him, and if a dinosaur or whatever got to him, then so be it. But Piccolo watched Gohan, and I think there were even certain scenes where maybe when things were a little bit too difficult for Gohan, he kind of flicked a little bit to help in Gohan's favor. And I feel like sometimes we can do certain things along those lines, but we have to find that balance with supporting and advising and guiding versus also giving distance and providing space for people. I've also always loved the idea about how eagles, the way that they teach their eaglets to fly, is that they take their little chicks from their nests and they just drop them when they feel like they're ready. And now these birds are plummeting to the ground at very high speed. And the moment that they're probably about to hit the ground, then the eagle, the parent, swoops down just in time to scoop the child, fly them back up, and then drops them again. And keeps on doing it until finally the eaglet gets it right and is able to fly on their own. So the eagle parent is detached enough to be able to give that eaglet that risk that, hey, I'm going to drop them, but I know that they can do it. I know they can figure this out on their own. And this is the best way for them to learn. But also, the eagle parent still cares enough to swoop down just in case. Just like how Piccolo was keeping an eye on Gohan so that they can guide and they can help the eaglet to try again. Like, all right, maybe you were just too much in shock. Maybe you do need to know that I'm here watching you and that I will protect you. And so a little bit of that assurance will help you to be able to move forward, to help you to be able to soar on those wings like you needed, because you won't be as paralyzed. Almost like training wheels. As long as you know, like, okay, I'm a little bit supported now and I'm not really gonna fall, then I can try a little bit harder. But now, like if you're on a tightrope, and all of a sudden you have the net like underneath you and everything, then it's a lot easier to try walking on the tightrope and everything. You're gonna actually try to walk on it now. But after some time, once you're like really good at it, and maybe they take the net away from you, but you didn't even know that the net was taken away, then it's like, oh. So there's certain times like that where you do have to know your own limits and your own strengths. But everybody is different, and that's why you have to know the person that you're dealing with so that you can know how much support that they actually need and in what kind of way do they need your support. Do they need your support and your guidance versus how much distance do they need, and are they capable of doing XYZ on their own after all. I think another thing too is that failure can often lead to a great sense of empathy for other people's struggles as well as creative innovations. You know, if somebody has always been protected by you always advising them, by you always keeping them from falling, by keeping them from failing and stuff like that, then it comes to a point where now the person is essentially haughty, you know? They feel like, well, I don't know why you keep on falling off of your bike. I never fell off of my bike growing up. Well, yeah, that's because you had mommy always protecting you. But if somebody had fallen off of their bike maybe a few times and had to learn the pains of getting back up and how much it does hurt to scrape your elbow, but then the bravery of after scraping your elbow and everything, getting back up on that bike and trying again, then they have more respect for another person who might be too afraid to get back up after scraping their elbow, or might be afraid to scrape their elbow to begin with. They have more of a nuanced perspective of other people's struggles because they've gone through that struggle on their own. But they can't really understand other people's struggles as much if they haven't really gone through it or experienced it for themselves. So that's once again why we shouldn't really shelter people too much, and instead we should allow them to fall. But of course, it always depends on the situation. If it's a lethal situation where the person might not end up alive anymore, yeah, you should probably step in. You should probably advise the person. But if it's a situation where the person's not really going to end up too hurt and they're going to be able to recover from it, and they can even utilize that pain to help other people in the future, and they can know that they made the decision on their own, then you've done your part. But I think that one of the most important things to know is having the wisdom of when to involve yourself and when to give the person space, and how much to involve yourself and how much to give that person space. And I wish I could tell you that, but once again, that's different for every person. You have to get to know the people, you have to get to know the situation, you have to get to try to understand it, and then you can be able to gauge like, okay, you know what? I'm going to leave this situation alone, and I'm going to trust that I'm making the right call, because I trust that this person, even if they fall, they're going to be able to get back up and they're going to be able to keep on doing this. Versus, okay, no, I think I should step in and help maybe just the first or second time, and after that, I'm cutting it off. Maybe I should step in and help for just this day, and then tomorrow we're good. But you always should be careful to use wisdom and not just do things for other people, not just constantly protecting them from everything in their life, but also not just completely leaving them to just be hung out to dry. Because then, well, now it doesn't even seem like you care at all. And you don't want to go to that extreme either. And as I said, failure can also lead to creative innovation. Sometimes while people are failing, then they end up realizing like, wait a minute, my original vision for this is not really coming together in the way that I thought. But as I messed up, I had a different idea, and I think I actually like this idea even better. And so what do from there? They continue to push that idea. They continue to pursue that idea. And they wouldn't have been able to get there if they weren't given the space to be able to fall. And then from that falling, have something else knocked into them. so they can create something totally new and totally refreshing, totally innovative and totally rejuvenating and exciting for them to continue moving forward with. Who knows? Maybe now they'll start taking even more risks, because failing and falling is not always a problem. And I think that that's pretty much the biggest lesson here.
I'm so sorry.
You failed!
And it was awesome.
Exceptional!
Outstanding.
I did better.
From failing, you learn. From success, not so much.
If I gave up every time I failed, I never would have made the meatball cannon.
I never would have made my fireproof pants. Still working out the kinks.
Like my husband always says.
When I say let people fail, when I say let them fall, I'm not saying it in a spiteful way. I'm saying it in a way that, honestly, it's an age-old tale. When people fail, when people fall, then they learn lessons from that a lot of times. There's always a lesson that can be learned, and if they are able to live to be able to learn the lesson, then they can have a more enriching life by pretty much imbuing that lesson and the things learned from it into the rest of the things that they do. And that's pretty much all that I have for y'all today. So if y'all have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any stories on times that maybe somebody has allowed you to fail and it's helped you out, or maybe even times where you've allowed somebody else to fail and you've realized that it helped them out. And how hard was it for you to watch them fail? How hard was it for you to watch them fall? You know, a time when you tried to advise someone and they didn't listen, and then they went ahead and received the exact consequences that life punished them with, that you were trying to get them to avoid, but then you were there for them afterwards. And from there on, you were able to show them a different path. How was that? Talk to me about all of that. Leave that in the comments below. If you would like coaching, be sure to visit me at denzelmensah.com, where we can talk a lot more about this. You can get a profiling session to find out which Myers-Briggs personality type that you are. We could have relationship coaching, whatever your heart desires. And last but not least, don't forget, you matter. Done. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. And if you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe. It actually really helps out my channel a lot, so that more people who actually care about what I want to say can actually find me a lot more easier. Also, if you did enjoy it, then maybe you'll enjoy a lot of my other content as well. So be sure to check out some of my playlists where you'll be able to find a lot of my older videos and older content. And last but not least, if you would like any profiling sessions or coaching sessions, be sure to check out denzelmensah.com, where you'll be able to book me and you'll see the rest of my services. But thanks again and have a great day.